For those out here that are unaware, the state of Connecticut is contemplating creating a system of congestion pricing, a newer version of toll roads, on some of the state's roads. If you are a Connecticut resident, you might be thinking, who in their right mind would support an increase in taxes in a state that already taxes its residents at exorbitant rates and has a problem managing their already enormous budget? The short answer? The Rockefellers. Before explaining what I mean by that, let us take a look at all of the testimony submitted for one of the proposed bills, HB number 6058, an act concerning electronic tolls. There are over 200 people that have submitted testimony for this bill, and the vast majority are in opposition to it. Randomly clicking on any of the names of the people that submitted testimony will very likely lead to a testimony submitted against the bill, like CT resident Pat Billette, who said, quote, "Enough already. How much more can you squeeze out of the citizens of CT?" End quote. Or Steve McDonald, who said in all caps, "Say no to tolls." But I knew that if I kept on looking, I would find testimony submitted in favor of the bill coming from one or more of the many tax-free foundations that are constantly lobbying the state to lower our standard of living under the guise of fighting climate change. I was right. I have written multiple times in the past on the Tri-State Transportation Campaign, or the TSTC, which is a, quote, nonprofit advocacy organization dedicated to reducing car dependency in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, end quote. And they brag on their website about using their influence to do things like halt highway widenings. In the past, the TSTC has lobbied for red light cameras to be installed on intersections across the state, toll roads to be installed, as well as other tactics that would create a heavier financial burden on operators of motor vehicles. So it was no surprise when I came across the testimony of Joseph Catrufo, a director at the TSTC. Catrufo is speaking on behalf of the TSTC in his testimony in support of toll roads in the state, explaining how this policy can be used to get people out of their cars and onto public transportation. Another tax-free organization that I've written about in the past, the Connecticut Fund for the Environment, also submitted testimony in favor of electronic toll roads, using the same justification as the TSTC that tolls will lower the amount of cars on the road, therefore reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now let us get to how the Rockefellers fit into all of this. Regular viewers of this channel are already aware of the nefarious influence that tax-free foundations are playing in society today. I often recommend the book Foundations, Their Power and Influence by Renee Wormser, which discusses the 1950s congressional investigations into tax-free foundations. Before high-level forces in government began to sabotage the committee's research and findings, the investigations were uncovering a subversive network of highly powerful and influential tax-free foundations. The Rockefeller Foundation and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund were two foundations mentioned in the book, and the Rockefeller family's subversive influence through foundations continues to this day. The previously mentioned Tri-State Transportation Campaign, which constantly lobbies the state to implement anti-car policies, shows a list of supporting foundations that give grant money to their organization on their website. Many of the organizations can be traced back to Rockefeller money. For example, they receive money from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, a fund started by the 5 Rockefeller brothers. Another foundation listed as a supporter, the Energy Foundation, also gets money from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund and was actually formed by the Rockefeller Foundation. The Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation is also listed, and the letter R in Geraldine R. Dodge stands for Rockefeller. I can continue with the Rockefeller TSTC connections, but you get the point. Now, looking at the other organization mentioned that gave testimony in favor of tolls, the Connecticut Fund for the Environment, we see similar connections. The Connecticut Fund for the Environment has received hundreds of thousands of dollars from the One Region Fund, which has gotten its money in part from the Rockefeller Foundation. In their testimony in support of tolls in Connecticut, the Connecticut Fund for the Environment cites studies from organizations that are themselves connected to Rockefeller money. When declaring that greenhouse gas emission has risen in the state as a result of increased vehicle use, the Acadia Center is used as a source. Well, the Acadia Center gets grant money from the Energy Foundation, which was founded by the Rockefeller Foundation, as previously mentioned. In another instance, a report from the Natural Resources Defense Council is quoted lauding the benefits of tolls. The Natural Resources Defense Council has received money from both the Rockefeller Brothers Fund and the Rockefeller Foundation. You can see what is happening here. The average person is not a supporter of toll roads. These policies are not happening from a grassroots level as we are made to think. The well-funded foundations are behind the push for these anti-car policies like toll roads. The same foundations are all funding and citing reports from each other. Watch my related videos to understand more about the influence of foundations and more specifically the Rockefeller influence on global politics. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel.